Are they arresting developers now, David?
The answer is yes. Yeah, there's an arrested developer.
Yeah, arrested. That's crazy. That's a big step up. And the question on the back of that is Ethereum really censorship resistant?
Arrest of suspected developer of Tornado Cash. No longer suspected. We do know that this is actually the Tornado Cash developer, and this is FIOD.NL. FIOD is the Netherlands Investigation of Financial Services and Financial Crime Organization, and they arrested a Tornado Cash developer. Now, it's one thing to arrest open source developers. That would be egregious. We're not totally sure if that's what happened. And so there's speculation out there that not only was this person happened to be a Tornado Cash developer, but they were actually perhaps also assisting and aiding people in laundering money. But we don't actually know because FIOD released a statement that basically didn't give us any clarity.
Well, my take on this is, first of all, it seems very much like possibly they didn't have another reason for arresting this Tornado Cash developer rather than publishing the code. As David, you said, we're not certain of that. That is kind of the base case assumption. And if that's the case, a man was arrested for writing code that served as a public good for people to maintain their privacy online. That means they put a man in jail because people use his open source code. And I don't think, David, that can stand in any free society on earth. As you said, we still don't know if there were other reasons that this arrest was made, but I believe on the 16th, FIAT provided some sort of statement on this, but it wasn't really clear. This is Jake Chervinsky saying they refuse to say what charges are alleged, if any, so we still don't know if they think writing code is a crime. Does FIAT think writing code is a crime?
Two outcomes I see here is that there is an ongoing investigation that they don't want to show their cards for. And this is me trying to retain my grip of bullishness on humanity. As in there's a really good reason I'm trying here. Is that there's this guy aided and abetted money laundering of criminals and actually committed crimes. Versus they didn't say anything because they know that they just arrested this guy for building Tornado Cash, which is the outcome I do not want.
So it's possible that the first outcome, the still be bullish on humanity outcome, right, is still out there, right? And so we need to remain open to that possibility. But I will say a few other things happened congruent with this, which is they deactivated the Tornado Cash Discord.
Right.
Okay. They killed the GitHub repos of all devs. And these were centralized companies doing this, so you could argue this is kind of a chilling effect, but still the chilling effect is an effect, isn't it?
Right.
It's a legally defined term, as you explained last week on the Tornado Cash episode. And then this is the backdrop where OFAC actually banned not individuals, but they banned some smart contract code. So what does the weight of evidence point us towards for this arrest? It is very possible that they made an arrest of an open source developer who just published some open source code. Bad guys used it, and that's why they want to send him to prison. And if so, that is a big, big problem, I think. Not for, we'll get to these takes later, not necessarily for Ethereum, not necessarily for crypto, though it is a problem for the technology, more a problem for the countries and the citizens that live in those countries who are restricting their First Amendment freedoms. First Amendment, of course, is I guess that's a US only term, but freedom of speech, freedom to write and publish code. Some of these things are very important in any free democratic society, and these are the things that are in threat of being breached right now.
And without evidence that these FIOD arrested this developer because they actually committed explicit and real crimes, then I think as a community we have to assume that the man is innocent and didn't do anything. Until they tell us, then in my mind, this guy just got arrested for writing code.
So what are the legal experts telling us at Coin Center? This is a crypto lobby group that investigates this. And as lawyers on staff, what are they saying, David?
Yeah, so Coin Center released a very thorough and detailed statement analysis, legal analysis of the OFAC ruling of Tornado Cash being on the SDN list. They write, if the Tornado Cash application is not property in which some foreign country or national has an interest, then the Tornado Cash application cannot properly be added to the SDN list or blocked under the specific powers granted by Congress to the president in the IEEPA. IEEPA is what gives OFAC power. someone should be able to challenge the designation as being made outside the bounds of the statute and therefore invalid. Basically saying Coin Center saying like someone should be able to challenge this. There's like strong legal grounds for somebody challenging this. And Coin Center basically lays out the two big claims as to why somebody could challenge this. So claim one, OFAC's designation of certain autonomous contract addresses denies Americans their liberty and property without proper procedural due process. Yes, covered this. And claim two, an overbroad interpretation of the IEEPA substantially chills First Amendment protected speech. So those are the main core claims that Coin Center believes that there are legal precedents, there's legal ground for someone to take OFAC to court. And Coin Center is not the only organization focused on freedom to release a statement like this. The EFF, the Electronic Frontier Foundation, which is an organization just dedicated to protecting the frontier, basically. And they put out a tweet that says, the EFF is deeply concerned that the U.S. Treasury Department has included an open source computer project, Tornado Cash, on its list of sanctioned individuals. Tornado Cash is an open source software project and website that published a decentralized cryptocurrency mixer. And then they go on in their tweet thread and also release an article backing this. And so now we have our lobby groups, our protection, our frontier protecting agencies, putting up a flag and saying, yo, OFAC, no, back off.
Yeah, and so important to note that OFAC didn't arrest this developer. It was the group in the Netherlands, of course, right. But it's all part of the same thing, isn't it? This global kind of financial apparatus trying to enforce these quote unquote financial crimes. And is privacy one of those financial crimes? This is a great tweet from Alex, David. What are we looking at? Just if you want to get the scope of other notable money laundering scandals in perspective. And let it be known, of course, Tornado Cash was used by some bad guys for money laundering. I think you pegged the percentage at like 35%, according to analysts. So at least 35% of the funds inside of Tornado Cash was like North Korea and some other like bad actors, money launderers. But that wasn't the only use case. And let's compare it to other money laundering scandals in history. What are we looking at here, David?
Yeah, so we're looking at a graphic of just the previous biggest money laundering scandal. So coming in at number one at 390 billion, we have the 2010 Wachovia Wells Fargo case, which was allowed drug cartels from Mexico to launder almost $400 billion during 2004 to 2007. Damn. Coming in at number one. Coming in at number two, 265 billion, Standard Chartered British banking giant 2012, accused by New York Department of Financial Services of its failure to control money laundering, then helped the Iranian government to circumvent U.S. regulations to clear money to the tune of 265 billion. Damn. Donks Bank. Money laundering scandal arose in 2017 to 2018 when it was became known that 200 billion euros of suspicious transactions flowed from Estonian, Russian, and Latvian sources through the Estonian bank branch of Denmark Bank, Donks Bank, from 2007 to 2015. 228 billion. Damn. And so, going to go back through those again. 390 billion from Wells Fargo. What happened was a $160 million fine. No arrests. The Standard Chartered, the number two, 265 billion. The bank paid a $842 million fine and disciplined 10 employees. I wonder what that means.
Severe discipline.
Coming in at 228 billion, the Donks Bank result, 10 employees were arrested. So 10 people went to jail. Okay, all right. No fine.
Maybe not to jail, just initially arrested.
Yeah.
We don't know what the outcomes were.
Coming in at number four, 8 billion HSBC. The result was this, a $300 million fine, no arrests. Coming in at number five, 11 billion Westpac Bank. Bank paid a $1.3 billion fine, no arrests. Tornado Cash coming in at number six. Tornado Cash,
possibly.
Open source.
Question mark, yes. Right? We don't know.
At its highest point, it held $500 to $900 million, but while authorities linked some of these addresses to North Korean hacker groups, it's unclear how much of that total was used for illegal purposes. Ryan, earlier you said 35% was in Tornado Cash. That was in Tornado Cash at the moment of it getting added to the OFAC list. And that's after the Nomad Bridge heist, all of these other recent heists. When I was using Tornado Cash as for my own personal use cases, like in 2021, it was really before pre-sanction. Importantly, pre-sanction. It was really before all of the bridge heists that we've seen. And so like, I bet you back in 2021, it was way below 35%. I bet you it was something down below 20%.
And the scope of this, we're talking like, look, $100 million to $300 million. All right. Look at these things.
Insane.
390 billion. Our friends Wells Fargo in 2010 did this. Standard Chartered, 265 billion with a B, versus like 100 to $300 million, right? And these are banks. These are banks doing this. So what, David? Should we shut down the banks? Like, just shut down banks?
I'm sorry. No bank has ever given me any privacy services. Like, what have they done for me? Tornado Cash gave me privacy services. These banks didn't do shit for me, Ryan.
If the rationale is that smart contract code can be used by money launderers, we also know that banks can be used and are used by money launderers. And by the way, these are just the ones we've caught, okay? So in that rationale, we're trying to sanction the smart contract code. Should we also sanction all banks? Right? Like, this is not the way to handle the situation. It appears very egregious to me. But David, maybe we should talk about the conversation on Twitter. And that is part 2 of our story here, because there are a lot of implications. There's some backlash too, but there are a lot of implications of getting smart contract code on the OFAC list.
The golden endgame of the ZK EVM has been the vision of ZKSYNC since the beginning. And during ETHCC week, they launched their 100 days to mainnet plan, which is now already down to 93 days. So if you're going to join the ZK EVM wars, make sure you post about it on Lens, the first decentralized social networking graph. In crypto, we say not your keys, not your crypto, but on Lens, we say not your keys, not your content. Own your own social media handle, choose your own algorithm, and mint your profile using the secret code word in the show notes. And something that's likely going to be talked about on Lens is, of course, the Ethereum merge. And the merge is why you should be staking your ETH with Rocket Pool. It's a decentralized Ethereum validator network where you deposit ETH and get your RETH in return, and then you can take that RETH into DeFi. And if you run a node, you can let other people deposit their ETH into your node, and you earn 15% of their staking commission as payment for your node operating services. And then maybe you want to take your RETH over to ARBITRUM. For all of your DeFi things, ARBITRUM is where you have to be. With over 35,000 contracts deployed and 1 million unique addresses, ARBITRUM is leading the way into the age of rollups. But in order to get your money over to ARBITRUM so you can buy your RETH natively, then you should use JUNO, because JUNO is the fastest bridge from your checking account to an Ethereum layer 2. A checking account to an Ethereum layer 2 is absolutely crazy, and it just takes minutes. JUNO is your crypto checking account for the crypto era. But when you're doing all of these things, make sure that it's on a privacy-first browser, which is why you should be using Brave. It blocks all the browser ads, it's got a native Web3 wallet, and it puts the user first the Web3 way.
There are a lot of implications. There's some backlash too, but there are a lot of implications of getting smart contract code on the OFAC list. What is the first implication here, and what are we looking at?
Yeah, this is going back to the chilling effect that has been created as a result of this OFAC SDN list of Tornado Cash. So Micah Zoltul, he put out a tweet saying, adding to this shame list, OpenSea, DYDX, and Microsoft, because Microsoft owns GitHub. And he says, all of these companies have gone beyond what the sanction laws required. They didn't just obey an unjust order, they went out of their way to do additional injustice. And so there's been this meme created about these, the over-complior. And so like, I'm over complying. Did you see the OFAC additions today? Modifies no to censor transactions. 7 hops from Tornado Cash, fire an AML report. There's all of these people in the ecosystem that are just like doing these things that was not requested of them, not related to the OFAC SDN list, and is censoring and prohibiting freedoms and users from doing the things that they want.
Well, it's true. Everyone on Ethereum with an ETH address is probably 2 or 3 hops, maybe 4 hops away from a Tornado Cash OFAC.
That was an analysis. Like the 90% of Ethereum addresses are 2 hops away from a Tornado Cash user.
90%.
And I mean, that's probably because of like the aggregation of centralized exchanges, but whatever.
Sure.
So some of the people doing this, Aave had a front end block. So Anthony Cesano, one of the recipients of to Sazzle.eth, a 0.1 ETH from the Tornado Cash like dusting that happened, he got blocked from the Aave front end. Aave has since then pulled back all of this front end blocking, but it
was a third party that they used for the blocking, right? And they said, we got to get more control over the third party. Right. And it's just the UI, not the smart contracts.
It's not the
but
smart
still,
contracts.
Even just the UI, I get it.
DYDX blocking Tornado Cash user. So if you've used Tornado Cash, you get blocked from DYDX. And these are things that like they are not required of them. And so this triggered a conversation on Twitter. It's like, yo, like, is Ethereum like going to just bend over backwards and become like the censorship chain? And this triggered a huge conversation inside of the Ethereum community.
Well, there was a back and forth that I had over the weekend with Antonio, and I want to make kind of like, because it's important not to get overly like purist about this as well, right? And so I tweeted out, and this is around the time of where I was starting to see UI blockages from the OSAC. It's time for DeFi to grow some backbone and fight back instead of just blocking ETH addresses. Unelected bureaucrats blacklisting citizens without cause or due process is unconstitutional, illegal, and incompatible with a free society. If it doesn't stop here, it just gets worse. And then Antonio, who is the founder of DYDX, so he was like, what am I supposed to do, Ryan? Like, are you saying you want me to go to jail? And if you're saying that, then why don't you spin up a front end of Tornado Cash? Like, why don't you put some stake in the game? And to be clear, that's really not what I'm saying, right? It's like, I replied to him, no, it's not time to go to jail. Let's be smart. But also, on the other hand, it's not time for DeFi, David, to sit down and die. And I really feel like this week has been a wake-up call for DeFi. We have to catch our breath. We have to organize. We have to develop some strategy around this, deploy some resources, and execute. I'm not saying now is the time to go to jail for like an organization like DYDX, but we have to find strategic legal ways to push back on this, to protest, and to move crypto and DeFi forward. And I think this has been a wake-up call for that.
But it's actually gotten even worse. It has been a conversation of like this fork of Geth, which is facetiously being called OFAC Geth, which is a version of Geth that does not propagate transactions or validate blocks with sanctioned transactions. This is Stefan from Flashbots, who is actually going to come out on the podcast on Monday. But he's being facetious about this. I'm not saying he's actually like creating OFAC Geth. But the conversation, to bring up the conversation is that like there's this world where like we have these Ethereum clients that download a list of sanctioned Ethereum addresses and just like don't include transactions from those Ethereum addresses.
It's in the base layer software.
This is base layer software, which creates protocol level censorship, which in my mind is bad. But the point is, it triggered this conversation, which is really, it was a great conversation that the community had on crypto Twitter. And then so the next part of this conversation, I think, was really triggered by Lefteris. And Lefteris, can't pronounce his last name, sorry. He goes, question for Lido, Coinbase, Kraken, Staked US, and Bitcoin Suisse. These are all the biggest Ethereum stakers. And he asked them, if a regulator asks you to censor at the Ethereum protocol level with your validators, what would you do? Would you A, comply and censor at the protocol level, or B, shut down the staking service in order to preserve network integrity? And he's retweeting a tweet that talks about just like, if you add all of these stakers together, you get something like 80 or 90% of all stake. And so this conversation really triggered just the conversation that flowed. And so Eric Wall, a man with very sharp edges who's also very poignant, says, question for the Ethereum community. If a majority of stake chooses A in this poll, and this is the poll that Lefteris put, would you, 1x, consider the censorship an attack on Ethereum and burn their stake via social consensus, and we'll define what social consensus is, or Y, tolerate the censorship? And then he scrolls down and actually puts a poll. And so the poll is, X or Y. X, burn the stake. Y, accept the censorship. And coming in at 61%, we have the people chose X. 9% of people chose Y. So a very stark difference. And then 30% of people picked show results. And so really this is not really something that you can put into the protocol level that the Ethereum community will state, we will burn your stake if you censor. This is something that we need to communicate to each other as a community. It's like, these are our values, and we're going to make these values explicit.
Well, can you just walk through that for people? Because I'm not sure everyone understands the mechanism of how social, like how a social fork could essentially burn people's stake and create a fork that is uncensored while the censored fork happens. Could you just walk through a scenario here? So let's say those stakers in Lefteris's tweet become evil. We call it evil. Coinbase, Kraken, all of them, and they decide
or
to
just
say,
some of them.
Yeah, and maybe it's not evil. They just say we have to comply with OFAC, and so we are now going to only validate blocks from every other block that is not on an OFAC sanction list. So essentially, they create an OFAC sanctionable Ethereum base layer, and because there's so much stake there, essentially a lot of blocks are not getting they kind of control it. So what happens in this scenario? What is Eric Wall actually teeing up? What does the Ethereum social layer 0 do about this?
Right. So the scenario here is that if all of those listed entities, Coinbase, Lido, Kraken, all the big stakers, all followed OFAC sanctions lists and didn't propagate any blocks that included transactions that came from an OFAC sanctioned list, basically, if you are an OFAC sanctioned list address, your block, you only get like 5 out of 100 blocks that will be validated by a staker who's not following the OFAC sanctions list. So like 5 out of 100 blocks of your transactions only go through. So making Ethereum just really hard to use. And the Ethereum community, through this poll where like 61 to 9 say that we will not tolerate that and we will burn their stake via social consensus. What does that mean? In Ethereum, we have this concept called slashing. And slashing is this very objective event of you're a proof of stake validator with a stake bond, and you tried to process an invalid block. You lied to the blockchain. You did some irregular thing, and that is completely objective. You published 2 blocks, and they're conflicting, trying to fork the chain, basically doing something invalid, and you're trying to attack the chain. That's what we do with slashing that is objective and built into the protocol, and it's going to happen automatically. Then there's this thing called social slashing, which is something is going on with a validator. Maybe it's Coinbase, maybe it's Lido. They're censoring an address. Maybe they're censoring every single transaction. And so like imagine like all of these people, all of these 90% of stakers, Lido, Coinbase, Kraken, like the government comes and says, hey, we want you to shut down Ethereum. And since you're producing 90% of blocks, we want your blocks to be completely empty. And then if they had a gun to their head, they would probably choose to not die and only publish empty blocks. And that would be censoring 90% of blocks that would go through Ethereum, making the blockchain really, really just troublesome and useless. And so in the event that this happens, you can't actually slash that person at the protocol level because it's more subjective as to what is going on. As in, Coinbase is not processing transactions that interact with Uniswap. Like, they're still processing blocks, and the blocks are valid. They're just choosing to not include transactions that interact with Uniswap or interact with Tornado Cash or do something. And so how do we, as a community, get back our ability to use these DeFi apps? There's this thing called social slashing, or a user activated soft fork. And so what this means is that because we have this like unique property in Ethereum that Coinbase, Kraken, Lido, these blocks are being proposed by specific Ethereum addresses. So we know these specific Ethereum addresses are censoring transactions, and these specific Ethereum addresses have some amount of Ether staked with them. And so what we can do is we can fork the chain, and we can do something that punishes them. We can either freeze their stake. The most nuclear option is you can just delete their entire stake. That would be pretty damn nuclear. We probably wouldn't do that on the first iteration. The thing that we would probably do first is we would do what is called an inactivity leak. We would prevent them from being able to validate the chain, and they would be forced to withdraw their Ether staked from the network. And during that time, they are no longer able to process blocks. And then you could also slash them some arbitrary amount. We would have to decide this as a community. But I think the first step would be like, hey, we're just going to kick you out of the validator pool. We're not going to delete your Ether. We're going to inactivity leak you, which means you are losing as much Ether as you otherwise would be gaining if you were staking. So forcing you to exit and kicking you out of the validator pool, and only allowing validators who have not been censoring. And this is a social slashing event. This is a user activated soft fork. This is something that the community would have to coordinate around, saying, hey, OFAC made Coinbase and Lido and Kraken. They made them by the powers of the nation state, the monopoly on violence. They made them censor transactions. And we do not accept that in the base layer. And so we are going to coordinate around a fork. And when that fork does, is that kicks these validators out of the validating pool, and they must withdraw their ETH, or else it's just like in limbo if they don't. And so this is what's called a user-activated soft fork, and it's something that can only be done by social consensus of the Ethereum community, which is why this poll from Eric Wall is so important, because it's showing that a 61 to 9 ratio of Ethereum community members says that we will do this if if our entities censor transactions.
Now, this is a Twitter poll, of course, right? It's like it's not necessarily reflective of everyone, of course. But like what David's describing is basically the end game scenario here. So a bunch of stakers, centralized stakers, decide that they are going to censor Ethereum via OFAC. Okay. The community says we're not running that software. We're continuing to run the original non-OFAC version of Geth. We'll fork you. This is the true Ethereum. And then they're trying to run an OFAC version or a censored version of Ethereum. And then like it's forked. So you have ETH on both chains. You have every DeFi app that needs to select which one to spend their resources on. The community has to decide, a set of validators, which one to essentially run, which software to run. And it's a fork war. And may the best fork win. And I think, David, in every single case, what will happen is as long as we have a social layer around Ethereum that says, look, censorship resistance is baked into the base layer of the Ethereum project. This is the true Ethereum, that the non-censorable version of Ethereum will win in the end. And the reason it will win, we know this from a game theory perspective, is why would China go deploy and trust the OFAC version of Ethereum that's completely US controlled? They're not going to. So state will continue to collect to the non-censorable version of Ethereum and the community will eventually win. Like, this is what I mean. As long as you have a layer 0, a social layer that is upholding these values and willing to run the original version of like Ethereum that is non-censored, we win. And this is what would happen. It would be a messy outcome. The cool news, I think, is if you're an ETH holder, you just get ETH on the OFAC version of the chain. Right. You could sell that if you want to.
But dump that because it doesn't align with your values.
Dump that. It doesn't align to your values if you want to, or you could keep it. You could do whatever you want. And then you could run validators on the real Ethereum chain that is uncensored. That's where you'll find me. You're going to find me on the non-censored Ethereum chain. I think a large portion of the community, you'll find them there too. By the way, this same mechanism plays out in Bitcoin, does it not?
Right. Yes, and this is a great history lesson. So we can move forward. But one of the reasons why I focus on this, this conversation on Tornado Cash happened on crypto Twitter. It's really important that this conversation happened because a lot of new people came into Ethereum in the last 12, 18, 24 months that are still learning concepts like this. And so we have to have these conversations out in the public where the Ethereum community defines hey, these are our values. No censorship at the base layer. And so this conversation continues. Eric Connor retweeted Eric Wall and says, I do agree with Eric. We should make it known as a community that we, stakers, will burn the stake of any entity. Burn at the stake any entity that tries to censor transactions, no matter the reason. These are the values that we're indoctrinating, we're instantiating into our layer 1. Now, going back to what you just said about the user-activated soft fork has been a mechanism that the crypto world has seen before. We've done this once before. And so Eric Wall put out this fantastic Twitter thread, which I'm going to read here. And he goes, as the Ethereum community gears up to prepare for its user-activated soft fork defenses to force any validator to think thrice before bending over to OFAC, there's going to be a lot of snark from Bitcoiners. And so we'll talk about the Bitcoiner relevancy here. It's envy. User-activated soft forking is the single most exciting thing that you can do in crypto. Bitcoiners had their user-activated soft fork moment in 2017, and it is their proudest moment. I am a Bitcoiner, and it is my proudest Bitcoin moment. The idea that Ethereum would be even close to achieving something similar is the most annoying thing that could ever happen. They'll never let you have it. The entire Bitcoin rhetoric relies on the reason that they were able to pull off their user-activated soft fork is because users ran full nodes. This is the basis for the entire design philosophy. It is true that the ability to run a full node is useful in a user-activated soft fork, but annoyingly, Ethereum can still pull it off, annoyingly to Bitcoiners. First off, Ethereum users can run nodes, despite what Bitcoiners will tell you. Even if the default is to sync using state commitments, that doesn't mean you can't enforce a user-activated soft fork. You, of course, can. Secondly, the outcome of a user-activated soft fork is much more of a market phenomenon anyways. You still win a user-activated soft fork just by demonstrating superior pricing power. So meaning that if you're not a person who doesn't know how to run a node or doesn't want to, you can still dump all of your OFAC ETH and buy all of your censorship resistance.
What's the true
ETH.
Ethereum? Is it ETH Classic?
It's the one that has a higher price. Yeah.
Right.
And so Eric Wall continues and goes, all of these things should be narrative violations for Bitcoiners. Ethereans should not be able to user-activated soft fork is a core Bitcoin thesis. And I'll say this, Bitcoiners are better at user-activating soft fork than Ethereans. They are, but they weren't born with that ability. They were taught that they had this power. What is that word, Ryan?
I have no idea.
I don't know. I don't know. Ethereans can be taught the same, basically saying that Bitcoiners don't have a monopoly on the concept of a user-activated soft fork. What most people don't know is that if Ethereans master user-activated soft fork under proof of stake, they gain access to a weapon that is more powerful than the user-activated soft fork of Bitcoiners. This is because a user-activated soft fork in proof of stake can selectively punish censoring validators. I talked about this earlier. Bitcoin, you can't selectively punish a miner. In proof of work, if a majority of hash rate is censoring, you have to build more hash rate than the attacker, which is possible. It just is hard and takes time. The non-censoring miners also earn transaction fees that the censoring miners do not. I wanted to mention this earlier. If you have like OFAC Geth and you have 90% of blocks that block stakers that are not processing OFAC non-compliant transactions, the remaining 10% of stakers actually make more money because they do get to process those transactions.
Right.
So you're actually rationally incentivized to process the illicit transactions. If you can't overpower the attacker in proof of work, the only option is the nuclear one. You change the proof of work function and vaporize the entire billion-dollar mining industry in one shot, but you also kill the honest miners. In proof of stake, there is currently $25 billion of ETH securing the chain. If 10 billion of that is involved in censoring, you can surgically vaporize the bad part, and you keep the $15 billion of remaining honest stakers on your side.
And you vaporize it. You vaporize it on your fork, the non-censored fork, right? So it's like punitive actions. Like, hey, you're going to pay for this, guys, because your fork's not going to be successful. Ours is, and on the successful Ethereum fork, you won't have any of your ETH. That is like the stick that social fork can yield.
It's brilliantly elegant because you reward the honest people and you punish the negative people. Now, Ryan, I've always been curious about this, because you and I could take our crypto Twitter conversations into this weekly rollup quite a lot. And I'm actually cognizant that I think maybe 33% of listeners are actually on crypto Twitter. And so I've always been kind of curious, damn, from the perspective of the listener, damn, Ryan and David are always concerned about the Bitcoiners and the Bitcoin maxis and the tribes. I want to go to the quote tweets from Eric Wall's first tweet. And so this is the set of quote tweets, people that retweeted Eric Wall's tweet. And you're going to get two classes of people here. One is Ethereans retweeting this tweet saying, I vote X, I vote to slash. And the other is you have Bitcoiners trying to brigand the poll and saying, Bitcoiners, vote Y because it makes Ethereum look bad.
Can I just say, whenever you're saying Bitcoiners, I want to make sure that you are talking about not everyone who owns Bitcoin, but a specific subset of Bitcoiner, which is a Bitcoin maximalist who wants all other chains to fail and only Bitcoin to succeed. That's what you're talking about when you're shorthanding Bitcoiners, when Eric Wall is doing that as well.
If you're not on crypto Twitter, you're not exposed to these tribes that are warring and these zero-sum games that are being played.
And we're overexposed.
We are overexposed to these people. So yeah, if you want to scroll down, Ryan, and just see some of these conversations, because if the quote tweets, the list of quote tweets, let's keep scrolling, just go through all of them. There's so many. The list of quote tweets, again, it's here's stats, sex, and snacks. It's time for Bitcoin. Imagine what it would feel like to know the integrity of your favorite shitcoin depends entirely on both stablecoin custodians and a status mole rat that lives in a $100 million LA mansion to do the right thing, even though it could sink them. Cry harder.
Who's the mole rat?
I don't know. These Bitcoiners are insane, dude. These maxis are insane. And so, there's two types of quote tweeters here. People that are Etherean saying, I vote X. And then people that are Bitcoin maxis trying to manipulate and attack the Ethereum community because of exactly what Eric Wall was saying. It's envy, he says. The user-activated soft fork incorporates the most single exciting thing you can do in crypto, and Bitcoiners don't want Ethereans to have this power because right now it's the only thing that the Bitcoiners have. Maxis.
Yeah, I think that's what's going on. What are we looking at here, David?
This is just a meme. Again, the Ethereum community is taking this opportunity to meme into existence. This is the press X to doubt meme, but it's press X to slash. And so the entire Ethereum community is yo, we will absolutely slash anyone who invalidates our values.
And look, so here's the thing. A lot of this is talk, conversation on Twitter, blah, blah, blah. I mean, at the end of the day, if this ever happened, by the way, this is set, I just want to emphasize this is still incredibly remote. There's a conversation on crypto Twitter, but there is no talk of OFAC or like the Coinbases of the world or any of the validators running sanctioned code or running censored code here and complying with OFAC's sanctions. And OFAC is not even asking about it. So this is just a remote probability that I feel like the crypto space went and ran with this week as a thought exercise, but it's a useful thought exercise, but it's still incredibly remote. And this is, by the way, we have the stick, but we also have like the kind of the carrot, I think, for people who are centralized staking providers. So Brian Armstrong actually replied to Lefteris's tweet when he asked, if regulators ask you to censor, do you comply and censor, or do you shut down your staking service if you're a Coinbase? Brian Armstrong, the CEO of Coinbase, says, it's a hypothetical, important to note, we hopefully won't actually face. But if we did, I pick option B. I would exit. Coinbase would stop staking. It would not censor transactions. It would not run the OFAC sanctioned validator code. It would
worth to note that the Coinbase staking is extremely profitable. They make a ton of money. And Brian is saying, instead of censoring the chain and compromising the integrity of Ethereum, we will shut down that business.
We won't do it. And what'll happen if they shut down, more people will have to kind of run their own nodes, obviously. So I think we've got a lot of defenses against this level of the state level of censorship resistance. And I think more defenses in a proof of stake world.
And it's definitely worth noting that these large entity stakers like Lido, Coinbase, etc., they're highly incentivized to not censor the chain because they don't want to piss off the community. Like they will punish you. We have that power. And so like the fact that this conversation is happening and the Ethereum community is planting a flag saying, hey, if you censor our transactions, we're going to kick you out. We'll fork you. And so like we'll burn your stake. And so they have to pick B because the community is forcing them to do that.
They have a fiduciary responsibility to pick B because they could get screwed. Imagine if they got slashed and they lost all of their depositors' money.
Right.
What are the costs of that? So even just the prospect of us being able to do this and this rhetoric on Twitter of like, you do this and we'll fork and we'll slash, that reins them in. They can't take the risk.
It's about having this user-activated soft fork as a threat without actually using it. The fact that it's an option keeps us from having us to use
mutually assured destruction, baby.
Exactly.
Do it.
Yeah.
Don't do it, though.
Please. Don't do it.
This will be fine. We don't have to fight.
This mess.
There were some bad takes, though, on I think on this takes. And love Ryan Selkis, previous guest on Bankless. Respect a lot of his ideas. He did not have the best take this week. But I think it's a summation of a lot of people who were saying like Bitcoin was looking great and Ethereum was looking very censored. What was his take here?
Yeah, Ryan Selkis says, Ethereum is amazing, but I don't get the sense most in the Ethereum have the stomach to push full decentralization without compromises. USEC, of course, and OFAC imparting that. And then he follows up, Bitcoin remains metal AF. Both are important for the decades ahead, but let's be honest, ETH is FinTech 3, not Web 3.
Oof.
Absolutely terrible take, Ryan. Come on.
Love you, though. Love you, Ryan.
And so I follow up and I say, Tornado Cash is banned in the United States. Yet, Tornado Cash is up and running. Ethereum is fulfilling its promise on unstoppable applications, metal AF, like subtweeting Ryan Selkis here. And so like
you don't get points if you don't even have privacy at the base layer.
Right.
Okay?
And so like people are just obsessed with giving Bitcoin so much credit. It's like, well, you didn't see Bitcoin get banned. You don't get credit for not having any useful applications.
It didn't show up at the game. It's on the bench. Okay.
You're like Bitcoin is just like this neutered app chain. Like you can only get like coin mixing at the centralized level, which has also been banned before.
Bitcoin, because besides transfers, Bitcoin uses basically its banking layer, its privacy layer doesn't have one, doesn't have a privacy layer. But if you did want to use quote unquote privacy, it would be through centralized exchanges, which are fully OFAC compliant.
Yeah,
you're not in the game, guys. I love you. I love Bitcoin.
Censored.
It's really important, but you're not in the privacy game. That's why OFAC is not bothering you. Nation states aren't bothering you is because you don't have a Tornado Cash on chain. That does not make you Bitcoin stronger. Okay,
Yeah,
that just
makes
makes
it
them not
weaker.
participating in the game that Ethereum's playing. Another take here, an equally bad take, I think. This is from Kevin O'Leary, another previous Bankless guest. We love you, Kevin. You've got a lot of great takes. This was not one of them. This is a hell no. Kevin O'Leary says, essentially, I'm glad the Tornado Cash developer was arrested. Now we get to move on. We get to be more regulated. I'll read some of the direct quotes. I think we're getting to that stage now, Kevin says. Maybe we're in the third or fourth inning towards that, but I'm tired of this crypto cowboy crap. He's talking about privacy here in Tornado. I want to get involved in a regulated place where we can bring billions of dollars to work. I want that too. I don't need to be a crypto cowboy, and I don't want to be one because I work in the regulated world. Okay, understand that, but this is the take that really gets me. At the end of the day, it's okay to arrest that guy, the Tornado Cash developer. Why? He's messing with the primal forces of regulation.
What do you think we're doing here, Kevin?
If we have to sacrifice him, that's okay, because we want to have some stability in that institutional capital. It is not okay to sacrifice an open source developer who is working on the public good. I know why I'm here, and it's not for that.
He says we are messing with the primal forces of regulation. That's why I'm here, Ryan. That's what I'm here to do.
Well, it's just there's different kind of cohorts and reasons for so we get some, we get different tribes, crypto tribes, certainly warring it out. Well, we also get people who are just here for the money. And that's okay, but you got to rest on top of the base principles of why the social layer is here. Another bad take. But the question of all of this is, David, what can we do about this?
Right.
All right. So what is this JW Verrett person doing, who is I believe he's a legal professor and a lawyer. What is he doing?
Writes very eloquently. He tweets out, I bite OFAC in the nose over their vague sanction of Tornado Cash. I applied to OFAC for a license in a way that would either obviate the harm that they did or give my nonprofit, the Crypto Freedom Lab, standing to sue them if they deny my license. I think he's basically saying I've put OFAC in a corner. Either answer that they give me opens back up Tornado Cash. And he wrote this very eloquent, concise blog post about the choice rule that he's forced OFAC into, and basically saying either way, I'm taking either they take option A and Tornado Cash becomes freely accessible to everyone again, or option B, and then they give me grounds to sue them, and I will sue them. So we have this individual going after OFAC right now.
It's great. JW Verrett, we applaud you. They might OFAC might just take option C, which is don't reply to these things, which they often do. Yeah. But this is a
which
good
he
effort.
also stated that he will sue them for as well.
Nice. Good job. JW has all his bases covered. We applaud efforts like this. Also, Coin Center is doing some fantastic things. So just, three of what they're doing. First of all, they're seeking to engage OFAC. So let's not attribute to malice, which may just be incompetence. They may not know what a smart contract is. They may not know the importance of privacy. Let's make some space for that.
Press X to doubt.
Coin Center is going to help OFAC with some of these things, maybe. Second, there are some innocent Americans who have funds deposited in Tornado Cash, and they don't know whether they can take the funds out or not. My guess is probably not. None of this is legal advice. Don't know. But Coin Center is helping those citizens. And then finally, they said they're beginning to explore with counsel a court challenge to this action. Stay tuned. All right. So that's what our crypto lobbyist friends are doing. We applaud Coin Center for doing that. I think, David, there are a few long-term things we could work on. All right. The very first politician who comes out with a recognition and a need that we all have for a digital bill of rights, I am supportful of that platform. Because, David, we need a digital bill of rights that protects our privacy, that protects our cryptography, that gives us the right to own our own private keys, that gives us the right to run our own software, that recognizes that code is speech for all citizens. Some of these rights are implied in the Constitution with freedom of speech. I think it's now time, as we transition to this digital era, to make this more explicit. I would support laws on the books towards this. That needs to happen, but it's going to be a slow process. The other thing we can do, of course, is start to form prototypal crypto nation states, network states, as Balaji calls them. So imagine a crypto native country. This is a decades-long project. It'll take years to get to this. But imagine if we set up such a constitution for digital freedom, where we enshrined property rights in Ethereum and other smart contract chains. We made sort of code as law from financial perspective. we backed our currency by ETH and Bitcoin. We had a citizen level IDs that are maybe verified credentials or soul-bound NFTs. We use DeFi as our banking system. We use DAOs for capital formation. And that idea from Balaji's burned in my head of like, let's start to work on this project. We can eventually get UN recognition, maybe years down the road. Even if we fail, this could be a prototype that other countries look at and they're like, huh, you guys had some good ideas here. Like maybe we should incorporate some of that because it's been successful. So that's another thing we can do. And then lastly, David, what is Gitcoin up to? And how can we help actually donate as individuals?
Well, there's plenty of privacy forward and also open source software freedom projects on Gitcoin. And so Gitcoin, and like 4 grant rounds a year, I believe, the next one coming up on September 7th, there is a $3 million matching fund, as in there's $3 million out there to be matched for other donations. So Ryan, you put out this bundle or this request for bundling of the top 3 to 10 projects fighting for free speech and privacy, and give them money, because you know what moves the needle the most? Money. So
you don't
weird,
say.
Right? Yeah. And so in the Gitcoin, there's going to be this privacy bundle, which you can just like donate to in net. And like all of your money will be matched by this $3 million matching fund. Coin Center, I'm sure, will be in there. There are other efforts as well. But money moves needles.
Save your money for September 7th. We're going to kick this off. We're going to promote it on Bankless. And we're going to fund where our values are in the future. Wow, that was a lot, but I think
it was a lot, but it was very significant. It was by far the most significant thing that happened.
Totally agree.
Hey, we hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, head over to Bankless HQ right now to develop your crypto investing skills and learn how to free yourself from banks and gain your financial independence. We recommend joining our daily newsletter, podcast, and community as a Bankless Premium subscriber to get the most out of your Bankless experience. You'll get access to our market analysis, our alpha leaks, and exclusive content, and even the Bankless token for airdrops, raffles, and unlocks. If you're interested in crypto, the Bankless community is where you want to be. Click the link in the description to become a Bankless Premium subscriber today. Also, don't forget to subscribe to the channel for in-depth interviews with industry leaders, Ask Me Anythings, and weekly roll-ups where we summarize the week in crypto and other fantastic content. Thanks everyone for watching and being on the journey as we build out the Bankless Nation.